Hey everyone, Tim Schofield here from QBKing77.com, here to talk about something that you may think is taboo around my videos. It's not. Just due to the amount of questions I've been getting about my opinion on it, I want to go ahead, instead of just responding to messages, go ahead and actually make a video about it. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about Apple's iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus. Now, in a press conference a while back, Steve Jobs actually said no one's going to buy a big phone, which is very ironic actually, because with the 6 and 6 Plus, it includes a 4.7 and 5.5 inch screen respectively, which is a pretty big jump from the 4.3 inch screen on the iPhone 5S. And when Tim Cook came out to announce the devices, he specifically said it's their best iPhones ever, which is, I always find amusing when people say that at keynotes, just because you're just like, I would hope it's your best one considering that it's your new flagship device compared to one from a year ago. Now, as I'm sure anyone that follows Android or iPhones, they've seen this infographic right up here on the screen, essentially comparing the iPhone 6 to the Nexus 4 with the screen size, screen resolution, but then you'll also get a long list of software features, not necessarily hardware features, such as NFC payments, notification, actions, widgets, third-party keyboards, typing suggestions, cloud photo backup, battery stats, etc. And then it says it's missing things such as wireless charging, water resistance, IR blasters, multi-user support, selectable default apps, split screen apps, and virtual buttons. So you'll see that this comparison basically is saying that the Nexus 4 is very similar to the iPhone 6. Now, one thing you'll have to take note about this infographic is that it is mainly software features. It is not necessarily hardware in a certain sense. It kind of depends. I'll get into the hardware in just a little bit. I will be talking about the specs and such. But yeah, so clearly iPhone is playing catch up with their software, no doubt. iOS 8, it gets released on September 17th, I believe, which is 2 days before the iPhone 6 gets out on September 19th. But as I said, they're definitely playing catch up with Android, and it just goes to show how advanced Android is in a sense. And how they do actually come up with really great ideas. And it's kind of, I guess you could look at it as a compliment to Android, seeing another operating system take ideas from their operating system and implementing it into their software. It's especially the third-party keyboard option. I just never quite understood why Apple never included that. I don't know why it's taken them so long to include it, but I guess finally in iOS 8 they're going to finally have third-party keyboard support. Now let's go ahead and talk about the design of the iPhone 6. It is thinner, and obviously it's larger due to the screen size being larger, but it's great that they actually have a thinner device now. In my opinion, the design of it is, the iPhone 6 is the best looking iPhone yet, and just in my opinion, they've definitely advanced on the aesthetics of it and the looks and the feel of it. Obviously I haven't felt it yet, but it seems as if just the curvature of it, they've done a better job compared to previous more blocky iPhones. Now with the screens of the device, it includes a Retina HD display. On the iPhone 6, as I said, 4.7 inch screen. It has a 750p display, which is a little upsetting. You would have hoped that they would have included a 1080p display on both devices. On the iPhone 6 Plus, it does have a 1080p display on their 5.5 inch screen. So you got a little bit of a resolution difference, which I'm sure app developers aren't necessarily happy about, but they're going to have to deal with it having to develop for two separate devices now. Apple has announced that they are going to include an A8 CPU chip processor, which is a dual-core 1.4 gigahertz processor, which is interesting to hear because you're so used to hearing about quad cores and even octa-cores with Android devices. It says that the A8 is 25% faster than the A7. I'll get into just a sec how they can kind of get away with including a dual-core processor. And it does only have 1 gigabyte of RAM, so once again you're seeing devices with 2-3 gigabytes of RAM on the Android side of things. So once again, well, give me a second and I'll get into why they can do that. So I want to talk about the price. $199, $299, $399 for the 16 gigabyte, 64 gigabyte, and 128 gigabyte models. So they don't have a 32 gigabyte model, which is kind of interesting. You would have thought they would have went with 32, 64, 128, but they didn't. You have a gray, silver, and gold color to any of your options, and like I said, you can pre-order it now and it ships out on September 19th. But anyways, let's get into it with the hardware, including only 1 gigabyte of RAM and a dual-core processor. The reason that they can do that is because of their software. Their software is optimized for their hardware. Since they don't have a ton of devices to develop for. They can focus on the hardware of the one device and optimize the software for it. Take, for example, on the Android side of things, you have Google developing Android, and they have Nexus devices. I don't know if you've used a Nexus device, you know that it is very fluid, very smooth, no lag. It just runs really well, and it has stock Android, and that is because they have optimized their software for that hardware on the Nexus device. The Nexus devices don't necessarily have the higher end specs, I guess you could say, but they also run very smooth and don't have any lag or anything, just because stock Android is very efficient and you don't necessarily need 3-4 gigabytes of RAM, octa-core processor to run the operating system, just because it's so optimized and efficient. Anyways, that being said, the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, they claim that the battery life is going to be similar to the 5S or better. The iPhone 6 Plus will probably have better battery life than the iPhone 6 just because it's larger. They can include a bigger battery. They didn't include the size of the battery yet. I have no idea how many milliamp hours it is, but I'm sure they will announce it soon enough. But anyways, that's about it. All I want to talk about the specs, etc. My thoughts on the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. They're definitely playing catch up in the software side of things. It'll be interesting to see how optimized the hardware is, if there is actually lag. Especially with these updated iOS 8 features with widgets, third-party apps, etc. Just with all of these new software features coming that they've implemented from Android with their, I guess, lower-end hardware than most upper-end hardware Android devices. So that's about it. That's all I wanted to talk about. I do want to hear from you guys, though. Let me know what you think about this device and if you actually think it's going to be a contender to Android devices now with these future software updates. So that's about it. If you could subscribe to me, I'd really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. All links will be in the description of the video below. And as always, guys, thank you for watching.